Everyone, good morning. My name is James Pham. I'm the co-founder of Opsin. We safeguard enterprises from data exposure risk using Microsoft Copilot. In another episode with Oversharing, I very honored to have Lisa from Cascade Environmental to be here with us today. So Lisa, why don't you go ahead and introduce a little bit more about yourself, what you're doing, what Cascade Environmental does.
Yeah, hi, James. Thanks for the invite. My name is Lisa Choi, and I am the Director of Enterprise Architecture for a organization called Cascade Environmental. We are a environmental drilling company based out of Bothell, Washington. We are one of the largest environmental service drilling companies in the United States. We have about 32 offices around the country. And for those that are not familiar with environmental drilling, consider the drinking water that you consume at your house, in your business, for schools. Um, most of most people don't know, but drinking water is decontaminated. It's clean. It's you're able to drink it without any contaminants. And so what happens is Cascade is works with other organizations where we do a fair amount of government contracts, and we go in and we decontaminate
Mm,
the groundwater as well as the ground for decontaminate. So we work on Superfund sites, we work on cleanup efforts. So a
mm,
lot of cleanup efforts. It's dirty, it's fast, it's extremely hard working conditions, and a
mm,
lot of what we do is to provide um, environmental safety for folks out in in the in the country. So that's what we do. What we have done here at Cascade is, and think I mentioned to you before, James, is we are a um, Microsoft stack company. So what that
mm,
means is that we are working in the Microsoft stack. Most all of our our data collection is all done in Teams, SharePoint, Outlook. It's a variety of different types of technical solutions, but
mm,
we use this um, to do internal business processes and work. So we build our all of our applications on the Microsoft stack. And
mm,
the next evolution of what we're doing is we're moving towards, as you know, um, leveraging Gen AI. So
mm,
Copilot, ChatGPT. Everyone has
mm,
heard all the different the latest tech tools that are out there, and
mm,
we are also going to be rolling out Copilot, and in doing so, we need a fair amount of readiness to be ready for rolling out Copilot. Part of my part of my concern is opening up the doors unintentionally to outside influences, so
mm,
that our data sometimes as you know, people tend to overshare their data, and
mm.
we don't want that to happen. So we want to be able to do the right thing and right fit our company so that we're not accidentally oversharing our data or accidentally sending it to people that shouldn't be sent.
Yeah, I think that's really good introductions about the company as well as your role and what you guys are up to. Um, so to be honest, like when we think about like an environmental company, we think that you guys are disadvantaged of trying to adopt Gen AI
Mhm.
and try to leverage different technology. And you guys actually one of the more advanced one that I've seen there. You have a proper program. You have like pretty much like kind of a playbook in a way to adopt Gen AI. So maybe let's walk through that process, right? So one is, I think, like what was your consideration between custom versus out of the box? So we lost Lisa. So let's see.
Oh, there we are.
Um, were you able to hear me? The question that I
I
just asked.
sorry, sorry, it kind of froze there.
Okay. Yeah. So I would just ask that, in terms of adopting Gen AI, um, you guys are a little bit more on the advanced side of the house. So when it comes to like building your own custom Gen AI application versus out of the box, right? So that's like the first decision that you
Hmm.
need to make. Then the second decision is like, hey, how do I roll it out, right? So for that first decision, what was your consideration and what were you thinking when you made the determination?
Well, we knew early on that the natural progression of where we need to be ahead in business is always going to be technology that's going to it's going to be right fit for our organization. We're the closest analogy to what we closest um, sector that we represent, environmental drilling, is going to be construction. We're a
Mm,
blue collar company, and the majority of our workforce, they're not going to be tech savvy, and
mm,
so we need to ensure that everyone from the drillers in out in our field to the office managers who manages the field offices to the geologists, to the PMs, all the way up to our C-level executives, they understand the goal of what we're trying to do with technology.
mm,
So I want to be able to ensure that the company as a whole is going to adopt um, Copilot, adopt
mm,
the Gen AI tool, and a big part of that is change management, right?
mm,
A user adoption is at its most, it can be a very challenging situation and a
mm,
challenging conversation to have, and so we knew early on that we wanted to get a taste of Copilot. So we have Copilot Pro as our pro. We have Copilot Pro licenses that
mm,
we granted folks to use. So those are going to be your folks that are going to be creating proposals. Those are people that are going to be taking advantage of the Gen AI tool, similar to ChatGPT, and
mm,
then we have folks that may not use it as much, right? How are they going to use and take advantage of Copilot, right? And
mm,
so we need to understand their use case, and then have it fit their needs. And so that's part of the getting ready for adoption. And the other
mm,
part that we wanted to make sure is that, are we making sure that the permissions, the security level is set for our organization. My
mm,
What we learned was, what we understand is that Copilot respects the permissions of SharePoint. But if you don't have SharePoint set up correctly, it is similar to opening the door to everyone in the entire world to
mhm,
come into your house, right? So that's something that we don't want to happen. So that's one of the reasons why we went and we did the early assessment, the getting ready, preparing for Copilot, right? Preparing to make sure that our SharePoint house
mm,
is fit, is it is understood how you're supposed to set it up correctly, and then we
mm,
educate our users so that they're not going to be um, oversharing, either by unintentional or by not
mm,
understanding how the tool works, right? How Copilot works with SharePoint. If they don't understand SharePoint, or if they
mm.
don't understand Teams, then they're going to continuously make the same mistakes over and over and again.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can address multiple questions there, right? So one is in terms of custom versus out of the box. It sounds
Hmm.
like your expertise is really about the drilling technologies.
Hmm.
And so you mentioned about the geologists, the drillers, the office managers. Probably it's going to be difficult for the team to build a custom bot in terms of kind of like maybe that would take you like a lot of time and effort to do that. So rather than doing so, you kind of go with Microsoft Copilot, which is um, a little bit easier to adopt, and like
Mm-hmm.
definitely like you still need to do all the change management that you described.
Yeah.
So um, would you talk a little bit more about that change management process that you work on, right? So I think you talk about get ready for your houses to be clean, your SharePoint houses to be clean. You also talk about something about like a little bit on the user education to make sure that people are aware of like what to do and what needs to be done. But would
Right.
you kind of like take a step back and kind of like walk us through what is that um, readiness look like for a successful rollout for you guys? And this is the second wave, right? I think in the
You're
past,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think for us, what success means is, in regards to change management, it is early on communication, and making sure that our everyone from the field operations, our frontline workers, to the back office workers, to corporate, to executives, they're going to receive the message that's going to make it so that they understand what's in it for them, right? So we always come across this notion of, well, okay, so we have this tool, what's in it for me? What am I going to get out of this? Why would I want to
yeah,
use this tool? And so we're going to right size that communication so they understand that it's a technology tool, but
mm,
just like with when we're using our smartphone, everyone understands the use case of
mm,
smartphone technology, but early on they didn't quite understand, well, this is like a walking computer. If you would have started out saying that, people would not have understood the draw to it. So they need to
mm,
understand, well, you can do more than just call people. You can search, you can take pictures, you can
mm,
do a whole bunch of other things that
mm,
are tied to this phone, right? So it's going to be a right size of communication,
mm,
as well as getting having a repeatable conversation with different folks in the organization. So that
mm,
to me is like getting people ready. It's early communication, and then giving them something that they understand what's in it for them.
yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, especially for the new technology, um, they read a lot of secondary sources on the
Hmm.
internet and how
Yeah,
scary it is, and
yeah,
maybe they less aware of like, okay, actually, if you are generating a proposals for a site, you could actually um, use Copilot or ChatGPT to help you with your work. But like the example that you gave about the phone, right? There's a lot of functionality beside calling. It's
right.
not just about like you know asking questions or like help you with your email, but it can also help you with generating proposals and many other use cases.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
like I said, it really is about what the message it's gonna need to be.
mm,
What's going to draw people to using Copilot? What's going to draw people to using ChatGPT? And that has to it has to fit for their needs, right? Otherwise, they're not going
mm,
people are not going to use it. You can build all sorts of really cool technology, but if it doesn't have a purpose, if it
mm.
doesn't have a specific need to why you'd want to go to this tool, then it is not as appealing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's it. Was that why you mentioned that you have to learn people use cases?
Yes, for sure. Because
Right.
everyone has different needs, everyone has different, not everyone is going to be on board. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that. At this stage of my career, it's like you either draw people to, horse to the water and make them drink, or you can have them learn that, oh, hey, there's a trial of water. I should drink that, right? Because it's good for me.
Mm.
So, somewhere in the middle, that I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I think that's a it's a good analogy. Um, And after that, after you get, so basically one is education, and then the second step was you actually, spend the time talking with customers, talking with your end users, understand what use cases they're trying to accomplish. And then what did you do after that? Like what did you done with that data?
Well, okay, so after we have the education piece, I think part of that is I remember early on when we were first started. So I started with the company almost 7 years ago,
Mm,
and my background is on the Microsoft side. I'm a consultant, so I have a consulting
mm,
background, and I started in the SharePoint consulting realm. And not everyone's going to be all super excited to jump on board, right? And I get that.
right.
Not everyone is a data nerd, and that's perfectly fine. It's
Mm,
about what is in it for them. And I started in with this company 7 years ago, and it's very old school approach to how things were done. IT was, you do it my way, you do it my way and my way only, and I will dole out permissions, I will dole out sites. And it was a very old school way of managing IT resources. They had more people than what I would have done, but it was old. It was very slow, and there was no room for growth, right? And so when I started, I'm like, well, I'm not going to be stuck doing permissions the rest of my life, because that's not where I want to be. I want to help people educate
right.
themselves. I want to be able to empower people to do great things with the tools that we build, and then
Yeah.
right size it, right? And so I took that same approach, that same consulting mindset, and
Mm,
kind of went out and taught people how to fish. Went out
mm.
and taught people,
How to
I
drink the
can
water.
I can help you do things faster and easier, so I will give you time back. That's the approach that I took, and so it started to grow from that approach of the old way of doing things to, oh, can I do that? I say, yeah, you totally can. I'm more than happy to show you how to do this, because now you have the ability to be work a lot more efficiently, work a lot more smarter, and be able to
Yeah.
take a lot of the tools out there that's off the shelf, and have it be a more of a plug and play approach
Mm,
to using the technology. And so I'm taking that same approach with Copilot,
mm,
and doing that same, I don't want to say same song and dance, but it's the same approach, right? It's teaching people so they can help themselves, but it's also taking their learnings and then growing from that. So it's more of a um grassroots approach of managing. And I
mm,
think the next step that we're going to be doing is creating a co-pilot governance
mm,
team, part of the bigger data governance team that we have. But this particular team, a subset of that, will be co-pilot and the
mm,
co-pilot governance, and having that body of knowledge of better practices of how to use co-pilot, better
mm,
practices on how to manage AI tools, so that you're getting, one,
mm,
the answers that you want, and two,
mm,
you understand the data behind it, right? So
mm,
two approaches to making that successful.
mm. Well, I think you guys are very systemized in terms of approaching, adopting technology, and not being restrictive, right? Like it's
Right.
not like, hey, you have to ask my permission to do it, but more like, okay, here's a new technology, play with it, but there's some guardrails around it, right?
Right.
I
There's
think.
some guardrails. And I think that's the thing that really helps and really resonates with people, is that we are, the way I see it, IT is a partner to
Mm,
the business, and it will always be partners, so that we will provide the guardrails and the systems in place, and
mm,
was better practices in place of what you should do, because this is going to be for the betterment
mm,
of the organization. And then within that, you can go ahead and create your prompts, create your chatbots, or create
mm,
repeatable actions, so that it makes life easier for you at work,
mm,
because it really shouldn't be a manual effort. It shouldn't be so strenuous
mm,
that you're spending all of your time. We're going to find ways of making things a lot more automated. And I think that's where this part of the conversation with Copilot is going to be a automation, a business productivity tool. And I'm super
mm,
excited about what other things can come
mm,
from that, because I only see it from my perspective. I'm excited to see what comes of when I hand it off to people and they have ideas, and what things will grow from that.
mm. Yeah, got you. Um, okay, so you talk about having a team that's specifically focusing on Copilot
Hmm.
governance,
Hmm.
and at the beginning of the podcast, you talk about this idea of having an invite everybody to your house. So could you kind of elaborate a little bit more on like what's the concerns there, what are your worry, and why are you worried about it?
Well, as with any organization, we have proprietary data that we don't want to overshare or accidentally release out to others, to our competitors. That's the general gist of it, right? We don't want
Mm,
to accidentally expose data that we really shouldn't be oversharing, and so that's a concern. And I think a lot of people do have that concern with who work in companies that have proposals, contracts. You don't want to accidentally share it, give it to someone else, and then they can take advantage of it. That's the that's my one of my concerns. But the other concern is
mm,
accidentally giving access or allowing people access into your own tenant that shouldn't be there.
mm,
So that also is, cybersecurity is
mm,
a very it's a big concern for a lot of people,
mm,
especially those of us that work in IT. It is extremely it's the thing that keeps us up at night. Like, we don't want to
mm,
accidentally expose something and then all of our systems go down. I mean, it's a big concern, right? So
mm,
that's what I mean by putting up guardrails, making sure that everyone who plays in the co-pilot arena, everyone who works in the organization, they understand what they're getting themselves into, right? I
mm,
believe when you and I first met, um, we have this notion that for every team site there are two or three owners, right? It's
mm,
not I'm one of the owners, but I'm a backup as an
mm,
IT, as an IT professional.
mm,
There are always going to be two owners to a site, so that if one of them is out sick or one of them takes vacation, you're not going to be tied doing
mm,
just that responsibility. And so I preach that early on so that they understand that as an owner to this site, as a content owner, I am responsible for XYZ. I understand my responsibility, and I'm going to take that under
mm,
consideration when I manage a site. And I always tell people, if you're not up for the task, do hand it off to someone else to so that they can own
mm.
that piece, similar to when you're flying on an airplane and you get seated next to the wings. Like, if you're
Exit
not able
route.
to do
Yeah.
this, please find someone else. It's the same idea. You need to preach, you need to have good safety hygiene to make sure that you're going to ensure your data is going to be safe, right?
Yeah. So you kind of talk about it, right? In the case of an airplane, if you see it in the exit route and you're not up
Mm-hmm.
for the task, the
Yeah.
consequences would be that, in the case of emergency, they cannot evacuate and there would be like casualty loss.
Yeah.
So what is that consequences in your case in terms of, if you adopt Copilot and the data got leaked out, and what the consequences from your end, similar to the analogy that you gave with the airline.
I mean, it's not the same as death, but it's having proprietary, confidential PII data accidentally exposed
Mm,
out to God knows where it goes, right? So you send it out, you change the parameters of your permission, and now everyone has access to this. Well, that everyone now, you can download, you can email it, you can like put it on
mm,
USB drive. off it goes, right? And so now you have no control over your data. It's about
mm,
data security. It's about ensuring that people are not going to do ill with that data, and to
mm,
ensure that those that who have access to it should have access to it. So it's all about keeping things secure.
mm. Yeah, I think that make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Um, so with that said, was there any incident in the past that made you be very cautious about data security and oversharing in general, or maybe you could give a few example of like how did people overshare, for example, like what what did they do that make it overshare?
Well, I think one of the things that we see a lot, and they may not know about, and it's that whole in OneDrive, right? I think you and I talked about this. The OneDrive, you share it, and you can share with everyone, or you can share with very specific people. And if you share with everyone, that means everyone who has access
Mm,
to that email, they have access to that document, and then that person has can then share it to someone else, and it's like a a an echo that just keeps going on and on and on and on. And so
mm,
that's the oversharing piece. And that's my concern more than anything else, that you have no control over where the end result of that data sharing goes, right? And
mm,
so if you set the permissions correctly, and you teach people how to
mm,
use the sharing piece, or
mm,
understand what their involvement is, they're going to think twice about sending a link,
mm,
instead of having the permission set the way they're supposed to be set, right? It's
mm,
understanding that, oh, maybe I really shouldn't be inviting people that I don't know into my teams, right? It's those are the things that takes a little bit of coaching, a little bit of understanding of
mm,
how you do it, without having to play the IT, um uh I call it the IT dark side. And so
overlord.
you don't get access to anything, right? So that's what I don't want to happen, because then I don't get to do all the really cool things, which is like enable people to learn new things with the technology that we're building.
Yeah,
I
I
don't want to
mean,
be the technology overlord, so to speak, right?
yeah, the dark side, right? You got
Yeah.
to be present in every SharePoint or OneDrive and
Yeah,
keep
that's
monitoring
not that
people.
is I have I that is not my goal. I don't want to be part of your birthday party. Like, no, thank you.
That's very good to know. And so we talk about like adopting custom versus out of box. Then we talk about like, okay, you go with out of box for this reason and that reason. Then we talk about like, okay, how do you ready your people to do it? Then one people are ready to do it, you actually talk with them to understand their use cases. And
Hmm.
then we talk about like, okay, you provide a guardrails to make sure that they play within the safe parameters of the in the environment that you offer. Um, and so then the next question that I have is, where do you see things are going with Gen AI in general, and how is it like at Cascade?
Well, I have big dreams over how
Mm,
where Gen AI is going to change the way people work and
mm,
think about work and business productivity
mm,
with Copilot and with other Gen AI tools. I don't necessarily think it's going to replace people. I think it's
mm,
going to allow people to um, do more things. So if
mm,
you're in a position where all you do is one thing and one thing only, and now Copilot or ChatGPT is able to help you do it faster, now it's going to give you the time back
mm,
to doing something else, right? So
mm,
it's going to give you that time back that's never been there before. So that's always been my approach to how technology should work.
mm,
I always tell the admins and the office managers that whatever we're building because we're going to help you find your time back, give you the
mm,
time back, to give you the value back to your time. So it's not, you're not having to spend all 8 hours doing timekeeping. Now if we can build you a solution that's going to help you reduce that time of the 8 hours, and it's going to give you half of it back, what are you going to
mm,
do with the rest of the other half? What other
mm,
things can you build? What other things can you do that's going to allow you to grow in your career,
mm,
grow in your development as an office manager? Maybe you want to go become a PM. Maybe you want to find some other career paths. So it's offering that ability, and I think that's how I see
mm,
Gen AI tools, is that it's a way to
mm.
broaden the skill set that you currently have, and then take it up one level.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting take. So basically, GenAI is an enabler, and
Mhm.
IT is not on the dark side, not an overlord, but like an
Yeah,
enabler of the enabler in a way to
right. We're
to to
we're we're I always see IT as a partner in specific, as a partner to specific departments, right? So if you're partnering with a organization, with part of an organization that is very heavy centric manual,
mm,
then you're able to allow them to grow and find other alternative ways of branching out to ensuring not just the growth of the business, but also
mm,
growing their workforce, so that they're able
mm,
to find a more enriching path, right? Career
mm.
path. I know
Yeah, yeah,
it sounds a little altruistic and a little bit like Star Trek, but that's where I'm going with this, right? So
yeah, yeah, definitely. So a little bit on the fun side, like what is your favorite use case for Copilot?
what are my favorite use cases?
Yeah, like what favorite task that you do with
Oh, one of
Copilot?
the things I find super fun, I found this early on, is I'm not that great in writing emails. My emails tend to be very like pedantic and like bullet points, and not a lot of creativity in that. And I found that you can have Copilot write your email in poetry verse. I thought that was really fun and really kind of like
Wow.
a very whimsical way of sending out emails. It has that ability to balance out the professional side to a more fun, whimsical side. And that was one of the things I found. I was like, oh, well, this is kind of fun. So I sent off an email to my boss, and I did it all in I think it was one in haiku, and the other one in three verse pedantic, iambic pentameter. And he's just kind of like, huh, I didn't, I'm like, I did this in Copilot. So
And then he had to use Copilot to reverse it back to
I
that
know,
instead.
which he did, which was even funnier. So
And if you have to give an advice to other IT leader who listening to the podcast and trying to adopt Gen AI in general and Copilot in general, like what advice would you have for them?
um I would say, the advice that I would say is, um listen to the needs of your organization, and to see the pockets where they fall,
Mm,
and see if perhaps Copilot can fill in that gap and make things just a little bit easier, make things a little bit more productive, make things a little bit
mm,
more enhanced, so that they're able to get the time back. We
mm,
find ourselves in the day-to-day, sometimes day-to-day drudgery of doing things that we don't necessarily like to do, like
mm,
reviewing contracts, hundreds of pages
mm,
of contracts, right? Like,
mm,
who wants to spend hours reading through a 300-page contract or proposal or an RFP, if you can
mm,
have Copilot go in and capture and summarize that 300 pages into bullet points that
mm,
gives the time back to that person. So I see it as a value add to the productivity of a person who is spending too much time in
mm,
the manual drudgery of what they're doing, right?
mm,
It's giving people the time back so that they can do good things, right? So that's what I would say is find out where in your organization where you're
mm,
seeing a lack of momentum, a lack of creativity, and then leverage Copilot or leverage Gen AI to
mm.
find that middle ground and then search that part out.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's definitely a good advice, right? That you want to be an enabler, you want to enable other people, you
Hmm.
want to be able to provide values instead of like being this overlord, but you actually
Yeah.
kind of provide value, identify the gaps, and helping organizations. So I think that makes total sense. Um, and a little bit on the personal side, right? I think you talk about like being a SharePoint consultant in your prior life, and then how did you get into
How did I
Cascade
do it?
and like,
That was by accident. I got into SharePoint by pure accident. I started out early on as a data analyst,
mm,
and I worked for a now defunct bank called Washington Mutual. They were
mm,
one of the largest banks in the United States, and they folded
mm,
back in 2000. I want to say in the early 2000s.
mm,
I just can't remember. And my first contracting job shortly after I left was
mm,
I ended up working for Microsoft as a SharePoint consultant.
mm,
And I it just kind of clicked. Like I understood the why and the what this was and how it can deliver
mm,
product document management, right?
mm,
Content management. It just something about it just really kind of resonated with me, and
mm,
I understood all of the things about governance and taxonomy and all of that. It just kind of all fell into place,
mm,
and I started following down that path for a few years, and I ended up working as a SharePoint consultant for my then
mm,
current boss. He was the consulting manager for a organized software company,
mm,
and I that was my first real my second real SharePoint job was working for him, but it wasn't really SharePoint. I was doing business analyst
mm,
consulting, and I ended up working for JMG, my current boss, many years afterwards. He called me up and said, "So hey, what are you doing right now?" I'm like, "I'm on a contract. What are you doing?" And so we just kind of reconnected, and it was a lot of fun. And now I'm 7 years deep into what I'm currently am, and have no plans of slowing down. I love this ability to take the unknown and create a space for folks that can grow, that can find empowerment in their career, and finding pockets of learning for folks that may not have had that opportunity. And that's, for me, that's a that gives me a lot of joy to see.
yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I think we are about to approach our time. So thank you so much for making the time,
Yeah,
Lisa.
anytime.
I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoy, your journey in adopting GenAI and your personal journey in how you accidentally work in SharePoint. Now you end up working on IT, and then
Yeah.
your mindset about enabling as a partner of a business instead of like as an overlord is really really interesting.
Sure,
Uh,
anytime.
yeah. So for the folks on the podcast, feel free to leave the comment there if you're still there, and then we'll answer it. A sing as well. Um, Again, my name is James Pham. I'm the host of the Oversharing podcast and very thankful to have Lisa here today.
Okay, thank you.